I just love this. Hey, everybody. I see I'm freezing. I don't know if it's just my computer, if you see it. Not sure. Anyway, sorry if it is. How are you? Happy Sunday to you all. The evolution of acting and Hollywood leading men. That's a subject that I haven't really thought about until I scheduled this show. I watch a lot of movies. I I've I've been around long enough to see the difference in styles, method acting, and all of that. But what really has changed? You throw Netflix on Prime, whatever. Hey, Danae, uh, what has changed? Where if you see an Errol Flynn movie, James Cagney, Marlon Brando, even in the 50s and 60s, and then you maybe, hey, Lee, put on Matthew McConaughey or someone. What's the difference? Script and shutter. Um, Acting, listen, it's been around as long at least as you and I. It started in ancient Greece and Italy, the Renaissance period, 150 years ago. George Eastman. And today, acting styles keep changing. Uh, you had silent pantomime to CGI now, blockbusters. You don't even need actors, you need good graphics. In the 20s, Hollywood studio system controlled actors like Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin, who, by the way, Charlie Chaplin wrote one of the greatest songs ever, Smile. Go check it out and you'll say, that was him? Yeah, it was. But acting has such a long history, and the acting styles keep changing. And we wonder what it is. Now, back in the day your great grandparents' day probably, silent comedies and westerns were big. Today, action movies and superhero films top the charts. And the change shows how acting has moved from physical comedy to more complex performances. And the big changes came with The Jazz Singer in 27. It added sound to films. Uh, Today, actresses like Scarlett Johansson, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, they mix serious roles with blockbuster hits, super villain heroes. Film history shows us how, with the new technology, from silent slapstick to AI driven, slapstick was something that was lauded years ago. People loved it, right? So you used to have movie theaters and movies. Now you have Netflix, prime time. You have Netflix original series that has decentralized the film landscape and totally changed the ground rules. Now, early film history shows how silent films used body language to tell stories, right? Actors made gestures, showed their feelings on their faces. That was because they didn't have dialogue to help tell the story. Now, actors from the stage found it hard to adjust to film. 60 to 65% of silent films were shot with Pathé cameras. And these cameras are big and made very hard to move around the set. So stars like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton changed everything. They used their bodies and faces in amazing ways because they couldn't do anything else. Chaplin's character was known for his funny and precise movements, right? Buster Keaton, on the other hand, was famous for his serious face, ability to make falling look like an art, which many of us, when we're older, do for free. Now, they showed us how to connect with people through just looking and moving. The sooner the stage people who came into the pictures get out, the better for the pictures, right? Now, stage actors found it tough to switch to film, but Keaton and Chaplin showed us how to do it right. They used pantomime and timing to make us feel what they wanted us to feel. Close ups, framing, focusing on actors' faces to highlight emotions because the cameras really couldn't move. Symbolic props, hats, and canes became storytelling tools. Global influence, German expressionism, shadowy play techniques that were going on worldwide came into Hollywood. Now, then you had the new techniques, 3-point lighting and editing, which became much more involved. It it shaped how we make the movies today. The skills, the mark of Zorro, Douglas Fairbanks, right? His stunts made him a legend. The Jazz Singer came out in 27. It marked the end of silent era. Now, those uh, actors and actresses that were on the theater side, there were reasons why they may have looked stiff back then. Uh, they didn't have multi-positional microphones. They may have had mics here and it restricted movement, stuff like that. Now, the talking and the talkies, as they call it, Warner Brothers started that with Don Juan in 26 or 27. And the first film with a synchronized score. By 1930, 10,000 US cinemas had sound technology, and that changed how stories were told. Early films, late 20s, Lights of New York showed fully synchronized dialogue. So it made actors focus on clear voices instead of the deadpan faces and the overall gestures that made the line or the moment come alive. Now you had a sentence that could do that, a line, right? Now, Gloria Swanson, right, excelled in dialogue driven roles. John Gilbert found it very hard, and he was very big in the early days. Silent stars with accents or bad voices saw their careers drop. Studios wanted actors who could speak clearly, enunciate. That's why there was so much enunciation in the early days because they were used to coming from Broadway or theater where you had to enunciate because you had a relationship with not only your co star, but the crowd as well. So you had to be able to speak coherently so lines and dialogue wasn't lost out in the twilight zone. Stationary mics made actors' movements very limited, and it led to very stiff performances. And that's why you see in the old days, actors just didn't seem as cool, maybe strutting around. Sets needed soundproofing. They used multiple cameras because they had to get the voices right. These changes forced the actors to adapt for the evolution, which now was the Hollywood evolution that came about. Now, the golden age of Hollywood, star power. Now, I always believed you don't have stars like you used to. I'll tell you why. Because back in the day, you waited for Kate Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, Clark Gable, whomever, uh, Gregory Peck, Cary Grant. Every 2 years, you waited for their movie. They were larger than life because they were. They were like monsters on the screen compared to you, sitting there looking up at them. You didn't see the Star magazine with Cary Grant with a pot belly on the beach because he hasn't started working out yet for his new role. You didn't see Kate Hepburn in rollers at the supermarket. You only saw them in their movie star glory. Nowadays, DirecTV streaming, Jack and Tony, the odd couple, can be in your house 6 times a day. You feel you know them more than your own family members. So it's not appointment TV anymore. It's not a great spectacular going to a movie. Now, contracts made stars exclusive. So it became a very regulated world, actors and actresses and agents and all that. So actors learned that the mid Atlantic accent was the accent to have to sound sophisticated. Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn mastered this. It made their performances less real. censorship rules banning interracial relationships, explicit drinking scenes, and so on. But they were still great. You had films like Gone with the Wind, the end of the 30s, um, Little Women, uh, King Kong. By 1948, the Supreme Court ended the monopoly on studios. TV grew, movie attendance fell. Stars like Bing Crosby made millions, but he couldn't stop the industry's decline, and he was like a god. Now, method acting transformed. I remember I used to play ball with Al Pacino, and Al told me, I was talking to him about acting, and he told me, Vin, when I do Broadway, after a run, I'll look at the character in my full view mirror and say, okay, I have to leave you now. It's been great playing you because he's character actor. He sits and lives and breathes with that character, but I have to leave you now. I said, what happens if there's a sequel? And he looked me dead eye and said, no, I'm fucked. He said that to me. But method acting changed everything, focusing on real feelings over showy performances. You were a version of yourself up there, opposed to a character. Uh, Stanislavski, Konstantin Stanislavski, was taught actors to use their own experience and feelings, go back to a time that was very uncomfortable and let it out. The actor studio, Ellie Kazan, in '47, they taught stars like Brando and Dean. And the new way of acting made it a very personal art. It was a very, very close to the heart trade, so everyone appeared to own it. But Stanislavski taught actors to recall your emotions and use their senses to get into the character. And sometimes it's very hard, so you have to stay there. Strasberg took it further at the actor studio, asking actors to prepare physically and mentally. For example, Marlon Brando spent most of the months preparing for A Streetcar Named Desire, uh, doing this, just really getting into feelings. He won the Oscar in '54 on the waterfront. Method techniques to portray a conflicted hero. James Dean brooding in East of Eden became iconic, proving that method acting had a powerful connection with the audience as well. The audience felt what you were feeling because you're a real human being, and so were they. Marilyn Monroe, her research for the Misfits involved months of preparation, mirroring methods demand for authenticity, which is very hard to be authentic when you're being someone you're supposedly not. Now, these performances broke the old Hollywood glamour, bringing in a raw realism. Okay, now actors, the late Heath Ledger, the Joker, Christian Bale, the Machinist, uh, they still use these techniques. Or they did. Heath Ledger did it. The method acting influence is very powerful, and it's unforgettable. And most of the actors that have given unforgettable performances were method actors. Now, acting styles have always been different. They come from shaping a classic cinema legacy. Al Pacino became a parody of himself. You expected in bed in a love scene for him to just go hooah, that's not hooah. So you expected that, like the Dick Tracy character. You expected Al to go over the top because that was Al. Um, from the pantomimes mimes to the modern technical performances changed everything. Moscow Arts Theater in the 1890s focused on realism, helped pave the way, like neorealism from the Italians. Italian neorealism used untrained actors to bring raw authenticity to post-war stories. If you're not an actor and you don't know how to act, perfect. That's what we want. Someone who's not an actor. Acting styles can capture the shift of their time. Uh, you had German expressionism and French New Wave and all that. But method acting since the '50s was influenced by most of the modern techniques. Intense performances like Robert De Niro's Oscar winning roles, right? Christian Bale. Now, early Well, yeah, early classic cinema relied on physicality. Charlie Chaplin slapstick. Dialogue was absent. You had to do something. Later, you had to have the vocal precision. So you had to change the way you acted. Um, the different dialogue you have can change your performance, definitely. Understanding these threads let viewers really decode the performances as historical documents, right? From Chaplin acting like a tramp, British word. Go look it up. That's your homework for tonight. Or Marlon Brando's raw vulnerability. That's what has been glorified for years. And to break down the uh, theatrical boundaries, so to speak. By the late 60s, acting styles changed to be very raw and unpolished. Hollywood started valuing authenticity over traditional polish. The Cary Grant, now you were looking at a more real character, not a James Bond like character. Actors were encouraged to play flawed, morally complex human beings like most of us are. So the naturalism, Emily Zola's naturalism, came up, which said actors are shaped by their environment and genes, which makes sense, right? Then you have like new Hollywood and anti-heroes. With the fall of the studio system, films began to feature anti-heroes, right? Five Easy Pieces, Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino, who could be more of an anti-hero than The Godfather, showed hesitation, imperfection, yet you were rooting for them. And you don't know why. Their character showed that fate is beyond our control, not our choice. So now documentaries, handheld cameras, and improvisation were used to make films more real. Movies like Network in 1976, remember that? I think it was Peter Finch, used shaky footage and real dialogue. They wanted the naturalism to capture life's unpredictability. Audience now demand those performances because we've been um, spoiled to live into the truth, vivid truth. That's what we want. And that changed Hollywood to a new era, showing vulnerability and proving that being real was risky, but a key to great acting. Then the technology took over, the modern films showing tech breakthroughs, uh, digital effects, how you make stories come to life, green screens to motion capture, right? Uh, Actors performing in front of a blank green screen, relying on imagination to interact with non-existent sets. I make believe there's a mountain behind me, and I'm climbing, and I have to really get into that. Uh, yeah, Andy Serkis's role as Gollum in Lord of the Rings showcases how this tech merges human emotion and animation. It pushes the boundaries of your performance, and you better be a good actor. Acting schools now teach motion capture techniques using VR headsets, and it helps with the hybrid craft because that's what it is now in Hollywood. You know, Performing opposite tennis balls or empty space requires immense focus, right? Actors train with AR tools now to visualize virtual partners, and it minimizes you having to use physical props. Schools on 360-degree camera angles to record rehearsals. It lets students analyze their body language in HD, see where you want to be. Um, Digital de aging, right? The Irishman, Robert De Niro and Pacino can play younger versions of themselves. It expands the casting possibilities, but it challenges the actors to align the performance with altered visuals. I remember hearing a story. My friend Rob Finero, was on The Sopranos, I was talking to him, and he had told me that Al Pacino um, got up pretty slow because he was in his 70s when they made The Irishman, and he was supposed to be a 50-year-old. And they said they didn't want to say it to him, but they made the AD go over and say, Al, you got to get up a little sprier. He goes, well, I'll try to be 60. And they all laughed, tried telling Al Pacino something. But that's what it is, too. If you're playing a younger man, you have to kind of act like a younger man. It's not just face makeup anymore. So Hollywood's evolved, blending global techniques into today's performances, right? Um, and the UK, the first major foreign market, pushed studios to adapt. By the 30s, uh, India showed how diverse audiences demanded various acting styles. Streaming platforms let actors learn from worldwide trends. You can see everybody now with streaming services. But classic cinema actors mix styles now. Uh, Chinese martial arts, Bollywood's energy create fresh performances, right? And you have a lot of misinformation flowing through you while you're doing a part, and it could be seen as real. And wow, he's an everyman. He reminds me like my next door neighbor because he's acting like your next door neighbor. He's not acting like an actor, he's acting like you. And that's the thing. How do you market that and how do you get that down? Italian street scenes, Godfather, taught stars to use real settings for raw emotion. You can go back. My great grandfather used to shop in a Santa Maria like this. Japanese restraint reshaped Marlon Brando's career because Kurosawa, he was it was a producer, a director, and he was very into that. Uh, French New Wave improvisation, spontaneity to American blockbusters. So there is so much that goes into it. Film history shows us acting styles have adapted to new challenges, like we have to as individuals, right? From silent films to the evolution, uh, from when sound first started in 27 to now. Okay. Now, what are the main differences between silent and sound? Sound uses voice, silent facial expressions, matching the character's words with feelings. Very hard. Um, Now, method acting, I think personally, when you focus on raw emotion, you might go to a very shady, dark place. Some people can handle it differently than others. But for the most part, I think that it's a very slippery slope. Gianni left. There must be another show on that he likes better than me. Yeah, Lee, that's true. Yeah, Al was very interesting. I used to pick his brain about acting all the time. He told me that when they filmed Dog Day Afternoon, um, John Casal had a habit of needing everything explained to him. When Casal was doing Dog Day Afternoon, probably in his late 30s, and he was supposed to be playing a 19 or a 20-year-old, and he went over to the director and the producer. Why? And then he'd say, okay, he just wanted answers. He felt it made him a better actor by knowing everything about the character, what the character needs to be, where he can find himself and let himself go. I always thought that one of the great things about acting is it could boldly take you where you've never gone before. I was actually supposed to go see a movie this weekend, and sometimes you can use it as an escape. I always thought that Hollywood stars, the reason why they are so politically active because they study for so many roles that they actually think they know everything. If you ask Robert De Niro, who drove a taxi for 6 weeks in New York to film Taxi, he knows what it's like to be a taxi driver. He hung out in an asylum when he did Awakenings. They study these roles so much that they actually think they're these people. So when you ask him, do you know what it's like to be a mafia boss? He's delved so much into it, he kind of believes he does. And that's what happens. We forget who we are because we're not supposed to be us, but we're supposed to feel the emotion of who we are and who are ourselves to have a blockbuster hit. I don't necessarily think it means all that much. Method acting, I I know about it because I've had friends that are actresses and they've told me about it. Well, the two girls that I know that are actresses don't use method, but I heard enough from people to know what it really is, and yeah, I think it's misunderstood method acting, but it's a vital part of Hollywood, but it's almost gone viral. It's loosely used now, the terminology. If I went back to my seventh grade class to cry, oh, Vinny's a method actor. No, I just happened to go, I couldn't get the crying out and I had to think about my father having a stroke and me finding him on the floor. That doesn't mean I'm a method actor. I used one bit. If I solve, I'm good in calculus. If I solve a problem here, I'm not a mathematician. Uh, you have to be careful with labeling because labeling can pigeonhole you, just like television series and movies do. You look at The Godfather 3, okay, which wasn't The Godfather 3, it was the death of Michael Corleone. It was not supposed to be anything like Godfather 1 or 2. 2 was a continuation of 1. This movie was supposed to stand on its own merit. Now, it was a victim of its own success. If the first 2 Godfathers had never come out, this movie would have been, not bad. But because it's the victim of its own success, The Godfather Death of Michael Corleone reminds me of Many Saints of Newark. If there wasn't The Sopranos, that movie would have been looked at much better. But because you're going against an industry standard, you're going against yourself. It's much like being a free agent in baseball when you're bidding against yourself. There's no one else in the bidding war but you. And you're so afraid of losing, you keep on raising the salary proposal to the player when no one is really in the mix, but you're so afraid of losing this guy. Well, that's the same thing. You keep on upping the ante for a blind villain. Now, acting has changed. Okay. Uh, Overt performances. You look at Carol O'Connor. He would be considered mild now. Carol O'Connor was the Al Pacino of 1971 of Over the Top. Al Pacino's Dick Tracy is over the top. Then you have actors that are very understated. George Clooney. Um, Sometimes you could say more with cool than not. A guy walks in that's a decent looking guy, very cool, into a bar. A girl will imagine he probably has a lot of girlfriends because he appears cool. That might not be the case, but it appears that way. That happens a lot. Appearances forge a performance out of us, which we don't even have to try. Um, you go to a great hyped movie, you take for granted that if the movie is a great movie, all the performances are going to be great because it would never be a great movie and sold as a great movie if the performances weren't great. You have to be careful with those movies because there are actors that are brilliant character actors, not lead actors, but you know their names as much as you know a leading man. Paul Savino's one, was never a leading man, but Paul Savino, great in everything he did. James Caan was a leading man for a short period of time in the 80s, um, then the 70s. But do you really look at James Caan as a leading man or kind of it's close, right? Um, Always a sidekick. Tony Randall to Rock Hudson. Tony Randall was always the sidekick in the Rock Hudson movies. But can they stand on their own? No, Tony Randall was not going to sell out a theater. Rock Hudson was. But as an accompanying part, as an adjutant, he certainly will make the show that much better. And that's what happens. Many times you get pigeonholed into a role. Look, Tom Cruise, he went from 80s, was never part of the Brat Pack, but in that age group, maybe a couple of years older, um, to action movies, right? Mission Impossible. You have Tom Hanks went from comedy to multi-Oscar winner. Robin Williams, comedy to Oscar winner. Denzel Washington, St. Elsewhere, Oscar winner. George Clooney. I don't think Clooney won an Oscar, but ER, coming from TV. What were the odds if I asked you in 1982 and I said Robin Williams and Tom Hanks, two of the biggest buffoons on TV, are going to win Oscars? You wouldn't have believed it. And Oscars for serious roles. You wouldn't have believed it. Hollywood acting can bring you to a place where you can't go anywhere else. Acting is like, you know why people like cyclones, roller coasters? Because you could live on the edge for 3 minutes and come back safe without the risks. You could live on the edge. You could be Wyatt Earp and come back safe without the risk of being in a gunfight. That's what happens with actors and actresses. They could be whoever they may dream of being. And when they say cut, you can go back to being you. So I look at actors from 60 years ago. Cary Grant, I love him, but very stiff. Very stiff. Um, you had character actor, Lee J. Cobb, Ernest Borgnine, guys that were in between that silent era and when TV was just taking off. And you could see the difference as they get older. Now, why do actors and actresses, why do their performances change as they get older? Well, physical prowess, right? You know, George Clooney at 65 can't be in a rom com anymore, right? Women generally, once they hit 40, can't be in a rom com, or you're stretching it. So you have to really think if you were a rom com princess or prince for 15, 20 years, look at Adam Sandler. He can't be in a rom com anymore. He went to real serious roles and has been great in them because it dries up. Roles for actresses in their 40s and 50s, women dry up. Men could age gracefully. Women age, unfortunately. That's the way Hollywood's always been. And it's not fair, but that's the way it's always been. I believe the gangster movies are a thing of the past because your gangster heroes are all 80 years old now. You don't have a young wave of actors that can sell it. I don't believe. Plus, the gangster movies don't make money anymore. People want to see action. Action movies sell. Um, People ask me who I believe the three greatest actors are in the last 50 years and the three most underrated. Um, I think Denzel. I don't think he's underrated anymore. Pacino, De Niro, Kevin Spacey, very good. A tick under them is Matthew McConaughey. I think he's good. Yeah, there were so many. Underrated. Excuse me. Ethan Hawke. It's very good. Uh, Edward Norton. Outstanding. Um, James Gandolfini would have been, I think, a big movie actor if he didn't die. And he started late. He would have been in his 50s already. Um, there were so many. Now, does the movie make the actor better, or does the actor make the movie better? Well, it's like Lennon and McCartney, both pretty good on their own, magic together. When you have the right script, the actor doesn't have to act. He just melds into the movie and it's a perfect union. Yeah, American Beauty was great. Yeah, Kevin Spacey was a great actor. Really good. Very talented. Great with impressions. He is really, really good. He sings. He did that Bobby Darin movie. Um, Jamie Foxx is very good. Jamie Foxx went to Juilliard. He really plays the piano. With that movie Ray, he really played the piano in that movie. But there are so many great, great artists that haven't seen the light of day because they didn't have the right role. There are roles that are just meant for you. Hey, Maria, how are you? I'm doing okay. Thank you. There are so many roles out there. And I like to play this game with myself. Like, I wonder who could have been a good James Bond. Clooney could have been John Hamm if you wanted to go American, could have. Um, you know, there are a lot of movies, and then there are movies you can't imagine anyone else playing the part, which is interesting. When they were The Godfather, they wanted George C. Scott originally as Don Corleone. They offered Nicholson, De Niro, not De Niro, I'm sorry, Robert Redford, um, Martin Sheen. Not for Michael. Martin Sheen read for, I think, Tom Hagen. Um, Morgana King had never been in a movie before. She was an opera singer who played Don Vito's wife. Her name Carmela. But that was a shit show casting that. Everyone tried out for everyone's part, but it ended. Marlon Brando ended up getting that role, and he was brilliant in it as Don Vito the elder. But there were roles that is it that we've only seen that actor in that role. I'll give you a perfect example. Look at MASH. Oh, Cary Grant would have been great as 007. I agree. I said that to someone the other day, Maria. He would have been amazing in it. You look at actors and actresses, right? And you wonder what role can just make it click. It's like a songwriter who struggles and then comes out with a great album, and then all of a sudden he's worldly recognized. Did he just get good all of a sudden? Or did you finally realize he is good? And that's what happens with a lot of movies. I think Bad choices. Look, Al Pacino was offered Pretty Woman. He turned it down. Sometimes bad choices. Now, if I told you MASH, who was better, Alan Alda or Sutherland? There are two movies that came out that if I ask you about the name of the movie, you're going to think of the TV series. Multi Oscar winners Jack uh, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. And if I say Odd Couple, you think of Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. MASH, you think of Alan Alda and Wayne Rogers and Harry Morgan and whomever. Does that mean that those actors are better than the originals? Or did it resonate more with us? For some reason, did we adopt them as those characters? Fonz, yeah. Yeah. Henry Winkler, he was great, Henry Winkler. I remember seeing Henry Winkler in the movie Heroes. They tried to parlay his Happy Days success with a movie. And I remember John Travolta and Lily Tomlin in a movie where he was a younger guy, she was older, and they had an affair. And there were some roles that you see, and you could be a great actor, but you can't see them in that role. I think that happens. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for coming in. Stay warm. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. No homework. And I will see you soon. Take care.